The absence of the statewide incumbents became a focal point of this past weekend's GOP convention in Minot. Most of those candidates came to the Magic City tonight to rally local Republicans. Lindsay Miller caught up with some of them for a reaction to criticism they received this past weekend and how they're handling their campaigns.
North Dakota's at-large House Representative Julie Fedorchak spent part of her Tuesday in Minot, meeting with area Republicans at a social event, calling it a celebration of conservative ideals.
The whole goal is to get people fired up about being Republicans, supporting Republican candidates who are out there every day.
But Fedorchak's lack of attendance at the GOP convention 48 hours earlier, along with several other statewide incumbents, drew the ire of delegates and party leadership. The party narrowly voting to strip the no-show candidates of their Republican brand. In his closing remarks, party chair Matthew Simon calling them out.
The appeal to forsake the convention nomination process in favor of the primary is really just a polished way of saying, we want your vote, not your voice.
We asked Public Service Commissioner Sheri Haugen-Hoffart for a reaction to Simon. She says she has been seeking voters' voices on the campaign trail since September.
Talking about what their concerns are. I'm an active listener, so taking those concerns, addressing their concerns, and working hard to get their trust in their vote in the primary.
Fedorchak says she had Tuesday's event on her schedule well before the convention, and she skipped this past weekend to focus on reaching a larger audience.
When I look at the convention, there was, just a few hundred people who attended, and really I'm much more focused, as are all the statewide elected officials, focused on the broader population of North Dakota.
Fedorchak adding that she and the statewide incumbents have done well with the broader electorate in previous races. In Minot, I'm Lindsay Miller, reporting for your News Leader.